Hello fellow woodworkers, welcome to this week's edition of the Garage Workshop 10-minute tool review. Today we're going to be looking at my Parkside tool haul. Roll the intro. So fellow woodworkers, I wanted to do something slightly different for this 10-minute tool review because it's coming to the stage where lots of the DIY tools sold by Parkside, which if you don't know what Parkside is, it's the brand produced by Lidl. A lot of these tools are coming up thick and fast in their middle of Lidl range, and this video is just to give you my insight into each of these tools, whether I think they're any good, what I think the strengths are, and what I think the areas to be developed are. Just two little disclaimers before we start. Number one, I'm not sponsored by Lidl in any way, shape or form. And number two, a lot of these tools are tools that I've only used the Parkside brand. And this video is not going to be a comparison of any of these tools against top brands like DeWalt or Makita or Festool. This is just my impressions of these tools that I've used, how I think they work, and what I think they are in terms of the good bits and the bad bits, and also whether I think they're value for money. So let's have a look at the first tool. So if you've been following my channel, you will have seen a couple of these tools have been reviewed. There's a review on my YouTube channel of the angle grinder, so I'm not going to talk in detail about that. And there is also a review of the saber saw, and I'm not going to talk in detail about that. The only thing I will say is, since I made those videos, I've obviously had an opportunity to use both these tools a little bit more. My original thoughts haven't changed, and if you haven't seen them, you can pop back in the channel and look at them. The only thing I would say about the Parkside angle grinder is, on occasions when you're trying to grind heavier objects, I was sharpening some chisels, it does pull a little bit in terms of power. It's not quite as powerful as perhaps it needs to be, but if you just go a bit lighter, maybe it'll take a little bit longer, but it does get the job done. I've also used the saber saw or reciprocating tool quite a few times now, and I've got nothing bad to say about that, except the one thing that I did point out in the original video, that being the fact that there is quite a little bit of play here between the body and the end of the saw. It's not a big deal, but when you're cutting through stronger or thicker pieces of material, then you do notice it. The next tool, and these are in no particular order, the next tool I want to look at is this one, which is their Jigsaw. I've used this Jigsaw a couple of times, and I have to say I'm really impressed. And obviously I've used other Jigsaws. I've got a very basic, cheap Asda £10 Jigsaw, which I think is a skill one. And I've used more expensive DeWalt and Makita ones, so I have got something to compare this to. But the features that are packed in this Jigsaw are absolutely fantastic. For it was what is a very low price. I think it was $29.99. If I can find the actual original price, I'll put it on the screen. But it's got a huge amount of features. It's a really sturdy, very well made unit. It's got a little dust shield, so when you're using the Jigsaw, as much as possible it keeps it in. It's got a great dust chute out the back. It's got a laser. You can adjust the depth, you can adjust the angle at which you cut. It is actually a really nice piece of kit for the money. Very impressed with that Jigsaw. And also inside it comes with a rail guide, or a guide, which again, fantastic little addition. So not a lot I would criticise on that. I really recommend that. Right, let's go on to the next tool. Okay, so the next tool that I'm going to talk about is actually this one on the bottom, which is the Parkside sander. It's a really nice piece of kit. It is as solid as anything. It's the construction, the outside case feels like it's iron. It's incredibly heavy and sturdy. It takes quite a chunk of effort to lift it. It's very similar to all of the higher end models. And in fact, I'm making this video on the 19th of August. And if you see this before the weekend, Aldi in their special buys that are coming up, I think on the 26th of August, have got an identical unit. Now I looked at these two units before, I compared them before, and they are identical in every single way. I know you can pay a lot of money for these sanders, and I think this one was about $39.99 if I remember rightly, or maybe it was a little bit more. I'll see if I can find the price. And it does everything I think that a high-end one does. The bit of the sander on the top, it goes up, it goes down. Really, really good power in all the discs. It's actually quite lethal. You've got to be very careful when using it. It's got a really nice fence on it. Getting the fence level is not so easy. It takes quite a bit of persuasion. Actually, a couple of times when I've used it, I have lent it. I've loosened the fence and I've lent it on something the same height to keep it at 90 degrees. But a really, really good unit, and I wouldn't be surprised if you would pay probably 20 or 30 pounds more for that unit than it actually is. It's a really, really nice piece of kit. Not something I use all the time, but some of you out there might well use it a lot, and I would highly recommend that. In fact, I haven't got anything bad to say about that one. The next one in the range is this one. Now, this plunge saw uses the Parkside 20 volt team battery, and I'm going to talk about batteries in a minute when I come on to some of the hand tools. This is as you would expect it to be. It's a plunge saw which is capable of, it says on the side, a depth of 25 mil. Now for me, I've comfortably cut through 12 mil plywood with this and it didn't have a problem. I did cut through some 18 mil ply and it really, really struggled. And I know that's quite a thick, dense wood, but it really did struggle. A couple of things about this which are improvements that I would make. Number one, the blade is quite, it cuts the wood, it cuts chunks out of the wood. It's quite brutal really in what it does. It's very, very difficult to make sort of fine cuts or cuts that don't have a lot of tear out on them. Now, you probably could buy a blade that's a thinner blade or a blade that's got more teeth, which is better for cutting more precision cuts in wood. But that is one thing I think I would definitely change. And the second thing is the key thing really. It's about the battery. Now, this is Parkside's 20 volt system. It's part of the 20 volt team of batteries. The battery does not last very long at all. Literally, you'll make probably 10 or 15 cuts and the battery will need charging. I don't know if it's because the motor takes a lot of energy, I don't know what, but when I used this, when I made my mitre station, and I was forever charging the battery up. The other thing is just about the power. I think probably it's down to the things I use it for, but it's not as gutsy as I would hope it is. It takes quite a long time cutting through wood, and quite a few times the blade has just stopped where it hasn't been able to get through the wood I'm using or material I'm using, even though it says in the instruction manual that it's able to do that. It does come with a fence, complete and utter waste of time, the fence. It's kept in by this little screw, which no matter how much you tighten it up, it just slips out far too much. And the only other thing, I'm hoping you can see that, is it's got this line guide here to show where your cuts are. Very, very inaccurate. And I know now, because I've used it enough times, that if I want to get an accurate cut, I have to go a couple mil to the left of where that line shows you. So overall, okay, but it's not at all, I think, I would recommend. And if you've got the money, I would tend to go for either the Jigsaw or a higher end saw made by another company. Not bad, but not the greatest tool that I've got. Okay, let's move on to the next tool. Okay, so the next tool that I'm going to look at in the range is by far my favourite of the Parkside tools. It's this multi-tool. Now, I know that DeWalt make one because I have one of those at my workplace, a DeWalt one of these, and it is fantastic. Don't get me wrong, brilliant. Better than this unit, but it was really expensive, and this wasn't. Now, as I said, I'm making this video around the 19th of August. There is currently one of these in their special buy sale that is battery operated in the same way as this, but it's really important to note this. Parkside have more than one battery system, as a lot of suppliers do. So you can see at the end there, the battery hole is very, very different to the 20 volt battery team there. And these are the batteries that it takes. It's the 12 volt Parkside team system. So the battery just goes in the end like that. Now, these 12-volt batteries are very cheap. In fact, as I said, the current little middle of Lidl, if you can still get them when this video comes out, these batteries are in there. They're $9.99 for each of the batteries. No criticism of the battery, it's a 12-volt battery, but they really don't last long. And in this multi-tool, when you've got it on full speed, it's got a really nice range on the variable speed. I'll show you in a minute. When you've got it on full speed, these batteries don't last very long. So when the Parkside tool range came on this week, I actually bought 2 more of these batteries because I've got a couple of tools that use them and they don't last very long. So I've always got one, I've actually got 2 batteries on the charge, but I've always got them going. But a really, really lovely tool. It goes through pretty much anything. And as I said, it's got 6 power settings. So this is the lowest one, setting 1. As you can hear, very nice, very gentle. And I used setting 1 and 2 when I did a project when I was sort of upcycling a chest of drawers. So number 1, this is number 2. You can see quite a torque range. 3, 4, 5, and 6. Really good range, and it will go through anything. And the other thing it has, I'm not sure because I haven't used a lot of these, I've only used a DeWalt one. The connector, I think, is a universal one. I certainly know that I've used Erbauer multi-tool pieces on here without any problem. So a really, really nice tool. Now, it's not the sort of tool that I'm going to use every day by any means. So for me, the sort of casual tool user, it's absolutely perfect for what I need. And when I put in the electrics in my garage, I use this to put in my data rail. It's invaluable. I used it all the time. Really, really good in hard to reach places. And if you've seen my recent router table video, you'll have seen I used it in there to cut out a section of wood when the router housing wouldn't fit. So highly recommend that. It does come with a lovely little selection of multi tools inside it. There's about 4 or 5 different tools, including the sander, and I've used the sander a lot, so really, really worth it. The next tool is this one, which again is in the current middle of Lidl range, and it is a very, very basic bog standard stapler stroke brad nailer. Now, I wouldn't use this as a brad nailer. I've got a brad nailer, a separate one, and obviously you've seen from my other videos, if you've seen them, I've got an Airstrike, Ryobi Airstrike sort of finisher nailer. But this one is really, really good for stapling, which is what I bought it. I haven't actually used this one yet. It's brand new. I've only had it a few days. But I have used a Parkside one before, which is why I went for it. It's fantastic with staples. Really, really easy to get into when it inevitably jams, which they all do. Nice, easy loading. It does feel a little bit cheap, some of the metal, I'm not going to lie, but it's a nice, handy unit. And if you just want a stapler, if you're doing upholstery, or you don't do a lot of stapling but need it every now and then, or brad nails, then great, but it's not a heavy-duty nailer. So don't buy it expecting to be able to put together, you know, the cladding on the inside of a camper van or something like that. It won't cope with that. But a really handy, useful little stapler nailer there. Okay, the next tool I'm going to talk about is actually a cross-line laser. Now, I've got experience of these lasers. This is one of the things I have used quite a few times, but not the Parkside one. Again, I've got access at my workplace to a DeWalt one. Now, the thing I like about this one, the first thing is it was really, really cheap. I think it was something like $14.99, and it is a fab unit. It is absolutely brilliant. Inside the box, you get a couple of different connectors to connect it to different things, and the actual laser itself is really nice and bright. And if you've seen, I'll just switch it on so you can see it. If you have seen my video series on making my cabinets when I partitioned off my garage, I used the laser level to line up at the top to put the cabinets on the wall, and it was perfect in terms of a nice straight level. The gyro in it's really, really good. You can still pick these up in Lidl's. I'm a bit of a fan of Lidl. Wherever I go in the country, I always find a Lidl and go in it. You can still pick these up in some places because it wasn't on that long ago, but a really, really nice little unit. And it's got a screw hole so you can fit it onto a tripod. But a really, really nice, really well competitively priced unit there. Again, something I would definitely recommend. My next tool, well, there's two tools in this range. This one is a heat gun. Now, the only reason I brought a heat gun is I want to start doing more electrics, and with more electrics, there are shrink tubes, and I'm a fisherman as well. I'm a carp angler as well as everything else. And for me, shrink tube is something you do over the steam coming out of your kettle when you're making a cup of tea. But I bought this specifically because I wanted to be able to use it. It's got a nice temperature gauge on the back which goes up and down, and again it's in the same range of battery. It's in the Parkside 20 volt battery series, and when you've got the battery on it, it makes a really, really nice unit. So a really nice little tool there. I don't use it very often, to be honest. I've actually only used it once, but I was impressed with how it looked when I used it. The second in the smaller tool range is the Parkside glue gun. And again, this is another one. I haven't actually used this one yet, but this is another one I've had experience of using. All glue guns are pretty much the same, but a nice unit, didn't clog very much at all. Really, really good unit. And inside the box it came with a load of different glue sticks, and I picked up some spare glue sticks with it, and they were really cheap. They were something like £2 for some really big long glue sticks. So a really, really nice unit. Okay, I've got two other tools in the tool haul. The last one is the one that is the most recent, and I'll get onto that in a minute, and it's a screwdriver. But I just want to point your attention to this. This Parkside light is absolutely fantastic. It's in this week's middle of Lidl's, and it's a 10 watt cordless LED light. But it is so good. It charges super, super quick, and it's really, really bright. I'm just going to pop the light off and put the light on so you can see how bright it is. Hopefully you can still see that and see how bright this light is. It's fantastic. It's really manoeuvrable. It's got lots of different options for moving not only the light but the stand. You can have it in different ways, different formations, upside down. You can take it off. Absolutely brilliant. £9.99 that was, and I've used other ones from Screwfix and DeWalt, and I've always found them to eventually run out or not be very good, but a really nice buy for £9.99. Okay, so the last sort of power tool is this. It's the cordless screwdriver stroke drill, and this is in the current middle of Lidl sort of special buys. It's a really nice unit, and the reason that I bought it, if you've seen my video on my channel where I do a sort of top 5 tools, I talk about having a dedicated screwdriver and a dedicated drill. Now this actually does come with a drilling unit on it, but that's not why I bought it. I wanted a little portable handheld screwdriver, and this does the job a treat. It's brand new. As I said, I haven't had it very long. Can't get the battery in. But it's super, super powerful. Really, really hefty unit. It feels much more expensive than it actually was. I think it was something like £12.99, and it came in the box as it was. It's a bare bones. It didn't come with a battery. You have to buy this battery separately. But it's absolutely fantastic, and it came in a box like this. All of the Parkside tools come in these little black carry cases, as you can see. I haven't put them all out here because I didn't have room. But it came in this box, and inside the box is the drill attachment, but like I said, I probably will never use that. And then this nice little Parkside box, which when I opened it, it had a little mini set of drill bits and some drivers. Now, they don't look the greatest quality, let's be honest, but a good little inclusion in the package then. I can't recommend this highly enough. It's absolutely fantastic. I've used it quite a lot already, in some of my projects, and you'll see a lot more coming up in my channel. So really worth it. Comes in the 12-volt battery series, and so far I've only had this battery in it. Haven't charged the battery yet, and it's as powerful as it is the day that I first used it. So highly recommend that. The only other thing that's in my collection is this, and I have to be honest, I'm not 100% sure that these are any good, but this is a moisture meter. Again, another Parkside tool. This was really cheap. It was $8.99, I think it was. And I've used it quite a lot of times, and I found that it's given me really good readings. When I've had pieces of wood which I know have been waterlogged, it's given me that reading. When I've got pieces of wood which I've left drying either to put on the fire, or when I use the featherboard on the chicken coop build, it gave me a really accurate reading. And I think for a small unit, it's really worth the money. So that's the last tool, power tool. The only other thing I want to give a shout out about are these Parkside clamps. These clamps are really cost effective. They're very cheap, and they come in a set with smaller ones. If you've seen the build for the router table, you will have seen the amount of clamps that I got. I buy these, I think they're like $2.99 for a 4-pack, 2 big ones and 2 smaller ones. They're brilliant clamps. I also have some Aldi clamps that are the same as this, but they're nowhere near as sturdy and they're nowhere near as strong. And in fact, all of my Aldi clamps now slip when you tighten them up. Whereas these, I've had these for ages and they're as good as they were the day that I bought them. So I cannot recommend these highly enough. They've also got a nice button system that's here, whereas the Aldi clamps, I'll just show you one. The Aldi clamps, the button is here and they're not as easy to get to. Whereas this one, if you're using the clamp and you want to loosen it off, it's right there where your finger is. Nice and easy to release. So again, another really good recommendation. So that's the end of this week's 10-minute tool review. I hope you found it useful. As always, please drop any comments below. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button if you're not subscribed to my channel. And don't forget to hit the notification bell. Give me likes. It'd be really great to have some feedback. Also, if you've got any questions or comments or want to know anything about any of the tools that I've talked about this week, please drop that in the comments. If you've got one of these tools and you've had a similar experience or not a similar experience, then please let me know. Thanks very much for joining me this week. Happy woodworking, and I'll catch you next time.